Hello and good evening, our beloved viewers. You are watching on live RTD channel. Welcome to this English news edition. Coming up, the headlines. The head of state present the opening ceremony of the Commercial Bank of Ethiopia. And on the international scenes, ceasefire announcement after calls from Kremlin. Those were the headlines. Thanks for joining us in our newsroom. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Margile, arrived today, Sunday, in the Sultanate of Oman to present his condolence on his personal behalf and on behalf of the people of Djibouti following the death last Friday of the Sultan of Oman, Mr. Qaboos bin Said. He was greeted on his arrival by His Highness Al-Sayyid Hamad bin Thawani Al-Sayyid and several senior Omani officials, as well as our ambassador to Sultanate of Oman with residence in Saudi Arabia, Mr. Dia Al-Din Sayyid Bamakrama. The President was accompanied by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mr. Mohammed Ali Yusuf. Immediately after his arrival, the President went to the palace where the President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Margile, met with the new Sultan of Oman, Mr. Haitem bin Tariq, where he presented the condolence to him in the presence of the family of the deceased and several high-ranking civil and military official. The Sultan of Oman, Qaboos bin Said, passed away Friday night at the age of 79. The Sultan of Oman, like the Arabic and Islamic countries, has lost a wise censor and faithful statesman who devoted his life to serving his country and ensuring the security, prosperity, and stability of his people, and made his country a factor of stability and balance in the region, which earned him an appreciation and respect of brothers and friends countries. In his tribute to the President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Margile described the latest leader as a charismatic and enlightened leader who knew how to confer on his country all the transformation for its stability and development of models of political neutrality. He also succeeded in making his country a high palace of dialogue, consensus for the preservation of strengthening and peace in the region, in the war, the President Gile wrote. Moreover, the President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Margile, expressed to the new Sultan of Oman, Mr. Haitem bin Tariq, the government and the people of Oman, the most sincere condolence and deepest feeling of sympathy and compassion. It was on the top stories. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Margile, today sponsored the launching ceremony of the Ethiopian Trade Bank in the heart of capital. This occasion took place in the presence of the Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed and several members of the government, including the Minister of Finance and Economy, Mr. Ilyas Musa, and the banking governors until Mr. Ahmed Othman Ali, the director of Ethiopian Bank in addition to the Ethiopian ambassador of Djibouti, the president of Business and Investment Council and representative of a diplomatic mission and international regional organization of operation of the country. The launch of this Ethiopian bank contributes to strengthening the file of economic and social development and creating jobs, opportunity, and investment in Djibouti. The Ethiopian bank is keeping pace with the determined effort to advance economic and social development in the Republic of Djibouti. In his speech on this occasion, the director of Ethiopian Trade Bank pointed out the importance of launching this bank in advancement of the same time thanks and gratitude to His Excellency the President of the Republic for sponsoring this occasion. For more details, let's listen.
Supporting as key development partner, the bank has vision of becoming world-class commercial bank by 2025. The Commercial Bank of Ethiopia is the biggest bank in the second most populous country in Africa. Established in 1942, the bank has over 1,530 branches across the country, 3,000 ATM machines, and serves more than 23 million account holders locally. The total asset of the bank has jumped over $23 billion. Further, the bank went regional and aspiring to go global.
On this occasion, for his part, the governor of the Central Bank of Djibouti, Ahmed Othman Ali, stressed in his speech that the existing economic and trade relation between our two countries. Details in this report.
Dans les contextes de dynamisme économique régional et les forts intérêts communs liant Djibouti et l'Éthiopie,
the governor of the Central Bank of Djibouti, Mr. Ahmed Othman Ali, stressed in his speech that the existing economic and trade relations between our country and our Ethiopian neighbor are considered a successful economic model that other countries in the region can follow the example of following with Idris Umar. He said, after the transportation, the port and the railways that link our two countries, which facilitated exchanges between the two countries, and today we are witnessing the occasion of the opening of this commercial bank, which has grown to the main factors that play an important role in promoting economic growth in our two countries and promoting economic integration. He added on another level, the arrival of the Commercial Bank of Ethiopia after the importation succeeds bank with regional capital on our financial plan that has been dominated by the foreign banks shows that the continent is developing and that our region, especially the COMESA, is particularly dynamic. In this process towards development and economic transformation, our two Djibouti and Ethiopia countries, whose destinies are linked. Continuing his intervention, the governor of the Central Bank affirmed that the cooperation of our two countries constituted a model of successful economic integration from which other countries in the COMESA region and that continent can draw inspiration. And he said, I remain very confident that the future will promote our economic development and the relevance of our membership in COMESA, which also aims at establishing a monetary union in the medium term.
In his turn, the Minister of Economic and Finance, Mr. Ilyas Musetewali, expressed the importance of this occasion, which is an important event in view of its role in increasing the numbers of banks available in Djibouti. He stressed that the return of Ethiopian Trade Bank add to the banking development taking place in the infrastructures and regional integration of the two countries, as both Djibouti and Ethiopia were established thanks to the direct and historical link and relation. Many of projects are still being accomplished. He also emphasized the financial sector in Djibouti witnessed a great recovery that contribute to the increase in the number of economic activities in the local market, especially banks. In a brief statement he made after the official launch of this banking institution, the President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Margele, has offered a dinner gala in order to evaluate the bilateral relation and joint cooperation between the Republic of Djibouti and the Federal Republic of Ethiopia.
Ethiopian Airlines dalkii ugu horeeyay ay tagteen halkan buu Commercial Bank of Ethiopia waxa la furay 43 sanadku markuu ah oo magaca la oran jiray barigaas National Bank of Ethiopia ka bacdina 78 baa dib loo furay ilamaan dhowr iyo siddeetankii wax dee maamulka ku saabsan baa lagu xidhay bay ahayd iminkana waa kuwan soo noqday dee wax badan ganacsiga iyo maxaan ku dhahday baaci mushtarka dhammaantiis wax weyn buu u tarayaa waa kii 12aad in sha allahu tacaala kuwa kalena iman doonaan.
After the inauguration of the bank, the President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Margile, received in the Presidential Palace a delegation from the World Bank. The delegation was accompanied by the World Bank delegation consisting of 14 official Minister of Economic and Finance, Ilyas Musa Dawali, Minister of Housing, and the Minister of Social Affairs, Secretary of State in charge of decentralization, and governors of the Central Bank of Djibouti. During this meeting, the President of the Republic discussed with the delegation the existing fruitful relation and cooperation of Djibouti and the International Finance Corporation and the ways and means to enhance the partnership with the World Bank in the coming years to achieve the goals of sustainable development. This meeting also took place in the presence of the Secretary General of the Presidency of the Republic, Mr. Mohammed Abdullah. And continuing the national news, the members of the World Bank delegation is in a statement to the national TV comment on the goals of their visit to Djibouti and the most prominent topics they discussed with the President of the Republic. They also highlighted the International Finance Corporation and the ways and means to increase the partnership with the World Bank in the coming years to achieve the goals of a sustainable development. For his part, in an interview by the Minister of Economic and Finance, Ilyas Musa Dawale, reported on the radio television of Djibouti that the President of the Republic discussed with the World Bank delegation during this meeting views on partnership and existing cooperation between Djibouti and the World Bank relate to the national strategy. Mr. Ilyas Musa Dawale noted that during the meeting, the President is vision regarding the fight against poverty in the country was reviewed and that there are great challenges insulting us to confront it. He added that the World Bank delegation praised the development policy of the President of the Republic in developing the country. The project are to be implemented to the World Bank on January. This project allows Djibouti to obtain financing which will reduce poverty in the implementation of Djibouti. An important delegation comprising 14 administrations of the World Bank, accompanied by the Minister of Social Affairs and Solidarity, Ms. Muna Osman Aden, Minister of State in charge of decentralization, Hamadou Mohamed Aramis, went to Obok region on Saturday as part of the implementation of the regional project implemented by the National Agency for Community Development in order to oversee the implementation of a social project and to stand closely on the establishment achieved on the ground. Upon their arrival, the delegation from the World Bank and the government of Djibouti were received with a warm welcome by the project of the region, Mr. Abdul Malik Mohammed Benoita, and the President of the Regional Council of the region, Mohammed Ahmed Ismail, in addition to the local elect. After the warm reception received by the delegation, the latter went to the headquarters of the Regional Council to hold a meeting with the officials in charge of the latest development regarding this project. During this meeting, a brief presentation of social network project was present, in which two women, especially mothers, were exalted at the end of the meeting. Certificates were awarded to mothers who maintain the health and well-being of our children and their families. In an interview, the prefect of Obokh region, Mr. Abdul Malik Muhammad Banoita, reviewed during this occasion the basic and necessary needs that the region needs in the file of health and environment, and in the, relation to climate change, he had the limit budget of the region produce the achievement of this initiative, and the budget we spend on the service needs for the benefit of the people of this region, said the prefect of the region. For his part, the president of the regional council noted that this region lives under difficult conditions, the first of which it is the refugees issues. The Secretary General of the Minister of Interior, Mr. Siraj Umar Abdul Qadir, stressed that the government of Djibouti, since 3 years ago, Djibouti has reorganized the need to consider the camps of village and the city. He recalled the basic and necessary needs that the region needs in the file of health and all the environment. And for his part, the Secretary of State of Decentralization, Mr. Hamadou Mohamed Aramis, thanked the World Bank for its support to the country in the difficult situation it is going through in housing refugees and migrants. He recalled that Djibouti, with its limited resources, has decided to reach out to this displaced population. It has opened its border and its heart to them. It is a very age-old tradition in Djibouti to show solidarity with the most vulnerable. He recalled the needs for an integrated program in all areas in order to relieve the population of Obokh of the impact of the migration flow. For her part, the Minister of Social Affairs, Ms. Muna Osman, recalled the government is a tireless effort to improve the living condition of the population of Obokh, which is very affected by the migrant river. She also added that the project is primarily aimed at the population. Refugees also benefit from the opportunities created because the President of the Republic has promulgated the decree giving them the same rights as any other Djiboutian in the works file, employment, housing, and access to health facilities, and also education. After finishing the ceremony of handing over the certificate to the Mother's Light, the delegation of the World Bank and the members of the government start the file visit to the Obokh Shopping Center. The delegation of the World Bank as well as the members of the government visit the various stands of exhibitions of handicraft project and the various projects of the RTDs. The delegation listened to the presentation of the project by the RTDs manager. After visiting various sites set up in the hospital of Obokh, and the World Bank delegation and members of the government inaugurated a brand new canteen in the former canteen site of the middle school of Obokh. The Minister of Decentralization, Mr. Aramis, the Secretary General of Menfop, Mr. Mahyub, and the head of the World Bank official cut the ribbon on the new dining room for the pupils of the middle and secondary school. This new premises is equipped with all the accessory and furniture. It is built according to universal standards and will be a new school building for the pupils of the middle and secondary school. In the wake of the day, the delegation traveled to the Fanihairu locality to meet with the most vulnerable community affected by the impact of migration. On their arrival, a warm welcome was extended to the World Bank delegation and the members of the government. The members then had a discussion with the beneficiaries, particularly women's group, very satisfied with the various forms of support that they had received and will continue to receive. They express their gratitude to the bank of the government for the special attention they were receiving from assistance in setting up their groups to the financing of income generating activities and management training. The director were very impressed and appreciate the effort of the project and encourage its continue as the challenges is very high. At the end of the file visit, the Yemeni Markazi Refugees Reception Center was closed and a brief presentation was made to the World Bank delegation on the situation of Yemeni refugees. A strong delegation of the 14 World Bank executive directors accompanied by 4 ministers as the Minister of Housing and the Minister of Social Affairs went yesterday to Jagaburdur. This tour enabled the highest authorities to investigate the situation of this rundown neighborhood in order to improve their living condition. The challenges are certainly many, but the action to meet them are commensurate with its determination. They also recall that if the project is first and foremost aimed at the poor population, then this same delegation had a meeting with the premises of Belbela School 6, welcomed by the local authorities and by a host of big days. The delegation first listened to the request of inhabitants of Belbela. The administrators then had a discussion with the inhabitants, particularly groups of elderly women and men. The bank's representative appreciate the effort of the project and encourage its continue as the challenges are high. The government of members also thank the bank for its support to the country. It is difficult in its difficult situation. They recall that Djibouti, which its limited resources, need to be supported by the World Bank in the implementation of this Zero Slump project. And now, the 10th General Assembly of the International Renewable Energy Agency, known as IRENA, began its work this Saturday in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, with the participation of 160 countries, including Djibouti, represented by the Minister of Energy in charge of natural resources, Mr. Yunis Ali Gedi. Details in this report.
The 10th General Assembly of the International Renewable Energy Agency began its work this Saturday in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, with the participation of 160 countries, including Djibouti, represented by the Minister of Energy in charge of natural resources, Yunus Ali Gedi. The two-day conference aims to accelerate the adoption of renewable energy and advance the global energy transformation. Delegates will discuss issues related to the renewable energy policy, investment, and technology. Chaired by the Deputy Prime Minister of Uganda, Ali Kunada Kivijinja, the 10th IRENA General Assembly also includes 3 ministerial discussions on key issues for accelerating sustainable energy sources on its agenda.
Moving on now to the regional and international scene, in Libya, Haftar announced a ceasefire after calls from the Kremlin and Ankara. The governors of the national unity on Sunday accepted the calls for a ceasefire in Libya from Moscow and Ankara hours after their arrival. Marshal announced a ceasefire of hostility. For more details, let's listen to this report.
Libya's East Libyan strongman Marshal Khalifa Haftar on Saturday announced a ceasefire after several months of fighting to take control of the capital Tripoli, following an appeal to that effect from Moscow and Ankara. Russian President Vladimir Putin and his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan, key players in the conflict, had called Wednesday for a ceasefire starting Saturday, while Haftar initially planned to continue his offensive. His forces finally agreed on Saturday, but warned in a brief statement that the response would be severe in case of violation of the truce by the opposing side, namely the forces of the UN-recognized Government of National Unity. Prior to Marsh's after the announcement, Putin and German Chancellor Angela Merkel met Saturday in Moscow as mediators in the conflict in Libya, which Berlin fears could become a second Syria.
And to finish this edition, a migration new tragedy at the sea. At least 12 dead in shipwreck of Greece. At least 12 migrants when their boat, which was carrying about 50 people, sank in the sea. The Greek Coast Guard said. More details in this report.
Only the bodies of 3 babies could be recovered. Other bodies that were floating on the side of the shipwreck could not be recovered for lack of means, lamented a Libyan Coast Guard. Some 120 migrants, mostly Africans, were on board at the time of the tragedy 6 kilometers off the Libyan coast. Survivors told AFP of survivors taken to the Al-Hamdiya region, 25 kilometers east of the Libyan capital Tripoli. Total of 60 migrants has been rescued, all of them young men, including from Yemen, Gambia, Zambia, and Sudan. An AFP correspondent said. They arrived on board a Coast Guard Sodek with the bodies of 3 babies carried on their arms before putting into wide body bags and then put into an ambulance.
This is it for this edition. Thanks for watching and have a good night.